Are you
Recording
sure?
in progress.
This time I'd like to call the Drainage Board meeting to order with the approval of the June 5th minutes, which we do not have.
And
Because
Dee had a little trouble accessing the minutes from the last meeting because Morgan's still on maternity leave, but we'll get them updated next month.
Okay. Surveyor's report.
We have payment of contractors here, enclosed the list of payment of contractors since September 11th. Any comments or questions in regards to the payment of contracts that Mr. Law can answer?
Yeah, John, MBC excavating on an Espadon, $4,500. Who's MBC and where was that work done at?
On the message, John.
Well, that's what it says here. Like we wrote him a check for $4,500.
It's not ringing a bell. MBC. Oh, Michael Klein, Michael D. Klein.
Okay.
Yeah, he did, subdivision, that's right, subdivision off of Timothy Road. It was Stone Oak, it used to be Stone Oaks. There was a basin that somebody filled it in, and there was a dry well in the middle of it. So they had to come in, remove all that dirt, pull the dry well, clean it off, put the dry well back in. They brought in gravel, filled around it, and then regraded the basin.
Well, off of Timothy Road,
Yeah,
That's the
south
upper
of,
end of
south of New Carlisle. Early Road, just south of Early Road,
okay.
Early and Timothy.
Any other questions in regards to the payments to contractors?
I'll make a motion to accept the payment to contractors as outlined.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to accept Exhibit A. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Sorry about that, Randy. He did that actually a month or two ago, but we wanted to wait to see what it did after a big rain before he sent the bill in, so that's why I was thrown, because it was actually done.
Change of assessments, as we have none.
We have none at this time.
At this time, be privilege of the floor.
Good morning, gentlemen. Brent Burkus from Blad Farms. Did I forget my address? I don't remember the procedure.
Yes.
Okay, 58995 Mayflower Road, South Bend, Indiana. Just would like to get everybody up to date on what's going on with the Dixon Place ditch. I know currently the county's doing a kind of a summary of what's in there with the permitting and all that. Chantel and I have been working with IDEM, and we are discussing with their agricultural liaison about what's going on. And kind of what we've kind of come to the conclusion is that the 3 million gallons a day that the city's putting in Dixon Place ditch has got to stop, just because of all the issues we've had. It seems like there's no controls over what's going on. So that's the policy we're going to try and pursue with IDEM and the EPA. And so basically right now, IDEM is doing their research, trying to figure out, you know, all the technicalities and so forth for that area. So once we do get some information, I'll bring it to you guys. My guess will be late fall, and that's really about it. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick report what's going on. The ditch is slowly recovering. We still got a lot of residual, especially on the side ditches that are in there, but the vegetation's coming back, so it's a plus.
I've been working with item too, John, he's been kind of keeping me up to date.
Yeah. Yep, yeah, he told me that, so that's why I haven't called you in about 2 weeks, but, so. Does anybody have any questions for?
Well, yeah, so Brent, as we know right now, there's been 2 separate events of releases.
Yes, there was the event in July,
Yeah.
and then,
4th of July.
yep, and then I don't have the exact date, but a few weeks later.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, same thing. And, you know, here's the thing, it's like, you know, we understand the city's got to drain things, I get that. But the issue is, if anybody's familiar with WOTUS, which is Waters of the U.S., this is a very big deal in the EPA circles. And all of us, we all farm in what the EPA would refer to as a nexus, because the navigable waterway starts at Crumbstown Highway with the Kankakee River. So WOTUS is a big issue in agricultural circles, and so that's why we're really, really concerned. But, you know, one would think the city would be monitoring what they're putting into the ditches. You know, it seems like there's no monitoring whatsoever by the city. You know, for the second dumping incident, I'm the one that found it. So both times, I'm the one out there just kind of, you know, driving around checking ditches, and you see a problem, you know? So, anyway, that's the latest I have. And like I said, as I get information from IDEM, I've been talking to John Law, and I'll keep you posted on what we find out. Yep.
Good morning, gentlemen. Chantel Snyder, Arthur Snyder Farms, 57537 Mayflower Road, South Bend, Indiana. Just to add on to what Brent has said, the second incident we noticed around August 16th, and what we saw was a kind of reddish brick red scum on the surface of the ditch. And in speaking with John from IDEM, we discovered that there were 5 underground pipes that were supposed to have been blocked and taken out of service at the ethanol plant between their wastewater and the clear water. The clear water is supposed to be the water that's coming into the ditch. And apparently these blockages to close these pipes off failed. And what we were experiencing in August was water that had been flushed to flush out the tanks, the corn mash fermentation tanks. And when they clean those out, they use a caustic chemical, and it rinses that out with extremely hot water. And this chemical, I have the name of that type of acid. It's not hydrochloric. It's something else. Not as caustic as hydrochloric. It's something a little less caustic, but still, the terminology from IDEM was that it was a caustic chemical. I have it. But consequently, this liquid, instead of going to the wastewater treatment plant for mitigation before it was released into the local sewage system, it went into the ditch. And this went right into my farm. And we have had clogged irrigation nozzles. I could show you pictures of this crud. It's pretty nasty looking stuff. And, you know, I leased my farm to Steve Mathis, and he and his guys were getting in that ditch, and they were having to scrape that scum away with like rakes and you know, other implements to try and get it away from the drainage pumps. I just spent $6,600 on a brand new pump that goes in the ditch. And, you know, we're experiencing clogging and failure of this brand new equipment that was very expensive for my farm because of this scum. And, you know, I've been trying to call Chuck, the general manager at the ethanol plant, and I can't get a hold of him. He's not returning my calls. I couldn't even leave a voice message the last time I called. But it's an ongoing problem. Now, I have been told, just kind of by acquaintances, that Butler, I think it's called Butler Valve and Pipe, or Pipe and Valve, has been hired by the ethanol plant to correct the problem so that this water is no longer going into that retention pond and into the ditch and waterways. This is all hearsay. I have had no formal communications with the ethanol plant. They have once again failed to contact the farmers. I beg your pardon. Failed to contact the farmers when the second spill pollution happened. And the Drainage Board really needs to put a little pressure on the ethanol plant to be more transparent and communicative. And I know Randy, I'm the one that said, has anybody contacted Randy about this second spill because John at IDEM was not communicating with the other farmers. He was communicating with Brent and I because we have been a couple of squeaky wheels for the last couple of months. But I'm the one that said, has anybody clued Randy in? Because he irrigates from that ditch as well. And so do other people further down the waterway. And, you know, once again, there's a failure to communicate. And in this particular instance, it was important that they should have contacted us because the water testing revealed that there was blue-green algae in the ditch. And John from IDEM said, I am recommending to the health department that there is a non-contact order, declared so that people do not come into contact with this water. Well, my tenant was in and out of that ditch. Yes, he had waders on, but still, stuff splashes. It can get in your eyes. That stuff is toxic and dangerous. And the ethanol plant said nothing when the spill happened. They didn't say anything to us after that no contact order was issued by the health department. And this is a problem. There needs to be communication and there needs to be transparency. I can't even get Chuck on the phone, the general manager at the ethanol plant. I can't even reach him on the phone. And
Is this, like I'm sort of removed from, well, I know where it is, but we're way out there south. But is this problem just started since the new people are
Yes.
supposedly bought?
to my knowledge, the original spill, now IDEM was aware of it on July 1st, the original spill, which meant they found out about it a little bit ahead of time because on July 1st, which was a Saturday, they were driving around taking water samples. So I don't know how many days prior to that they found out about the spill, but they were boots on the ground July 1st taking water samples. To my knowledge, there has never been any kind of spill like this in the past. Now,
So-
I have only been in charge of the farm since August of 2016. But my husband was, very open and, shared things with me. And to my knowledge, there was never a spill of this nature in that ditch before.
So this has happened since the new people that purchased it.
Yes,
has
ever
started-
since new
basically it
ownership,
started
yes.
since.
Yes.
And when you call the ethanol company, you are getting the new people.
I'm getting a busy signal. That's what I'm getting.
But I mean, that's who's in charge now, or these prospective buyers.
Well, I'm not sure if Chuck was working there before. I kind of think he was working there before. I don't think he's new to the facility. I could be wrong about that. But,
Who was with the previous owners?
yeah. So he's not new. Maybe ownership is new, but I think the people within the facility that are running it are the same people. They just had new bosses. And this, yes?
Do you know this most recent discharge, is it a failure on the ethanol plant that it went down the ditch? Or do you think it's the city?
I think it's both. Because the city's not monitoring what's going into their retention pond, but it's a failure from the ethanol plant because they're the ones that released this contaminated water into the freshwater pipes.
It's cleaning out of the fermentation tanks. Should that went right down directly? Do we know whether that should have went directly into the city sewer or the wastewater treatment plant?
That's what I was told. I was told by John at IDEM that it should have gone to the wastewater treatment plant for treatment before being released. And instead, it went into the retention pond and into my ditch.
Yeah, I mean, obviously something's failing, because as you mentioned, I don't recall it ever. And God, all the years that ethanol plant's been there, we've never had as much issues as we've had this summer.
Right.
So either something's, they're not paying attention at the ethanol plant, or the city itself then.
Yeah, I think it's a lack of oversight. And as I was told by John from IDEM, there are 5 underground pipes that were supposed to have been closed off and taken out of service, and those pipes sent the water from their waste system into the Clearwater system. Those were supposed to have been closed off, and apparently whatever they did to plug them up failed. And so all of this stuff was being released into the retention pond.
I think that retention pond is mainly for just all the non-contact cooling water to go in there and cool down.
I'll
And then
explain
be just,
that.
Well, you know, I went back in the farm records, and the right-of-way, I mean, Snyder Farms didn't sell the city that property for the ditch. We gave them an easement and a right-of-way. And in that agreement, it states that that water should be potable and suitable for using as irrigation. And that clearly has not been the situation this summer. So that's a problem. So, you know, I'm here to ask you guys if there's any pressure that can be put on the ethanol plant, on the powers that be, for transparency and a little bit more communication. Because, you know, guys were in and out of that ditch, and there was blue-green algae, very unsafe, could have made people sick, and we had no way of knowing.
Can you guys come to the commissioner meeting tomorrow at 10?
Let me check my
And we'll
calendar.
do it under old business, and then I'll follow up by going out there.
Yeah. I can pass my phone or show you the scum. I don't have a recent picture. I wanted to get over there yesterday, but my
Is it scummy now?
well, I was just saying, I wanted to get over there yesterday and take current pictures. The picture I have is about a week old, but it's still a concern. I mean, I communicate with Steve Mathis every couple of days, and his guys are still having to scrape that stuff away just to get, to unclog the pump, the system. And it's, you know, it's clogging nozzles in my big pivot. I mean, that pivot's basically new as of 2020 because it was hit by a tornado and had to be rebuilt. So we're talking about a pump that I bought in July and a 3-year-old irrigation pivot that are having failures because of the scum going through it.
Is that a common thing before?
No.
No.
This part of Eskridge's job to get out there?
Okay, tomorrow, I have an appointment at 8:45. What time's your meeting? 8:30? 10?
Yes, ma'am, 10.
I can try and make this work. I will
Okay.
just tell them I have to be out of there by 9:30, or I'll reschedule it.
John, did you have some comments in regards to them?
Well, when Chantel's done, I've been doing a lot of research on what's going on, I guess how it works. And basically what it is, the ethanol plant is you know how to make moonshine? The ethanol plant is a big moonshine still. So they take the corn, ferment it, take that, separate it, and then take the ethanol off that, which is the alcohol, pure alcohol. They add unleaded gasoline to it and then ship it off. Between batches, they got all that mash, they have to clean the tanks, so they empty the tanks. There's on site, inside there's a wastewater treatment plant. Works just like the city of South Bend's there next to the river. It's inside the fence. And that works the same way, and then the clean water from that goes off into the cooling pond. So they are mixing the hot water coming out of their little treatment plant, going into that big cooling pond, and then it's supposed to cool down and then go off into the ditch. It's the same as the city of South Bend. It's a combined sewer. So when you get a lot of rainfall, you know, all the sewage is going to the sewer plant, but on a heavy rainfall, that overloads the system, so it, you know, separates and goes off into the creeks and ditches, right?
We were not getting any rain in August. That might have been in the case in July, but it was not in August. And if I may I approach? I will
Yes.
show you this.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. It's a wastewater treatment plant dumping into the ditch instead of the river.
This is what we're dealing with.
And for whatever reason, the pipes that are supposed to bypass
Yeah.
during the heavy rains are bypassing now. There's a storm sewer
Yeah.
for the city
That's
right now,
nice.
Calvert. Is that Calvert Road going in? There's a storm sewer on Calvert that dumps into the ditch. what happens is when the ethanol plant, when that fills up and overflows, you know, can't handle it, that water goes into the city sewer, which then goes into the ditch.
Okay.
So that's kind of what's happening, even though we're not getting rain, the ethanol plant is discharging into that city sewer, which then turns around and discharges right into the ditch. So it's basically bypassing their treatment plant and getting into the city sewer, which then goes right into the ditch.
The city sewer should not be going into that ditch. It should be clear water. It should not be city sewer water.
It should be storm.
It's a storm, yeah, it's the storm drains that come like under the railroad tracks and come.
Right.
But, yeah, it should not be, we should not be getting any city sewage. I have kind of finished my remarks, but if anybody has any further questions, I'm going to send the photos that we have, and I'll go out there and take more photos this afternoon, and I can email those just to give you a status, current status of that. But that's what we're dealing with. And you know, it wouldn't make much difference other than I don't want those waterways being polluted. But, you know, had we been getting ample rain in August, this would have been less of an issue because we wouldn't have needed to irrigate, but we really needed to irrigate. And when the no contact order was issued, we were also told to stop irrigating out of the ditch. And that's when I said, did you let Randy know? Because they hadn't.
Chantel, I want to thank you and Brent for keeping me so.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Chantel?
Yes, sir.
Have you or Brent or IDEM contacted the city at all? Have you been to any city council meetings?
We have tried.
That was, okay, yeah, I had two last remarks. Number one, we've never had any issues in the ditch since I've been around. And that water is always clear. I hunt ducks in there every day in the fall, once duck season opens up and geese. So, I mean, I'm in that ditch with my waders. You know, if you have a duck go underneath the the weeds, you gotta get in there and find it. So I'm used to walking around in those rivers, and they have always been very clear. And to your point, the city's a non-player. I mean, they purposely just stiff-arm you. They don't care. You know, we've gone there, you leave messages, and, you know, they know what they're doing. I mean, bottom line, that's how I think it is. And given my experience with the city from 5 or 6 years ago, when they had the casino, and, you know, yeah, they're not here to help us. You know, and in the era of WOTUS, we've got to pay attention to that. But, you know, the other thing is, I'm kind of surprised the city don't even attend the county drain board meetings. And usually they're the topic. So, you know, not that we could do anything, but it just kind of surprised me the city is completely disengaged from what's going on.
Well, and the ethanol plant should be here. They should be reporting to you guys what's going on over there because it affects the entire county. It affects LaPorte County. You know, this stuff is going downstream. I mean, in August, they did, and I don't have the exact date, but I could check, they did raise the water level again, because that's what they did in July. They pumped cold water into that ditch, it raised the water level, helped to dilute the pollutants, but it didn't work as well this time, because this time we had all that scummy stuff. You know, in addition to the white milky stuff and the shiny, shimmery, greasy-looking stuff that we had in July, this time we also had the red scum, which is, you know, corn mash residue. But they're, you know, they don't seem to be concerned about it, and they ought to be here reporting this stuff to you guys, and they're not. So I don't know what kind of pressure you guys can exert, but I hope you put the full weight of any pressure you can exert into this issue. So, thank you.
Do we know who owns the retention basin where this non-contact cooling water goes into?
The city. There are actually two. I was told by John from IDEM that there's actually two ponds over there, but the main one is the city one. And the ethanol plant put in their own retention pond because the city was charging them too much to dump into the city's pond. But it's still getting used, but,
This retention basin goes back from day one of the ethanol plant. Has there been any maintenance done on it as far as dredging and silt that would have gotten in there over the years?
we would have no way of knowing because the ethanol plant won't even communicate with us. So that's a question for them.
Yeah.
That's definitely a question for them and the city, because the city actually owns that pond.
Sounds like the city is as much to blame as the ethanol plant.
Yes, they are. Yes, they
No,
are.
I've never seen it, but I sneak in there occasionally to look up on it.
Yeah.
And that one is good. And, Dave,
Now, I might ask council, would it be, since they can't get any response from the party out there, could we send them, I don't know what my terminology, have them present at our next meeting?
I mean, once again, we talked about this last meeting, this isn't really a drainage board issue. I mean, they're not blocking up the irrigation ditch, et cetera. She said that her farm left an easement for the city and that they violated the easement. I mean, if I was her, I would probably sue the city and say, we're revoking your easement. But,
Hated to let that out,
but as far as the drainage board goes, once again, I mean, they're discharging stuff they're not supposed to discharge, which is a health department issue, an IDEM issue, an EPA issue. So they've contacted everybody who's right. But, I mean, other than hiring somebody to clean out the scum, that would probably be the only thing that's in really our purview.
excuse me, sir. So, doesn't the drain board have investigative powers?
Yeah, so, but once again, they're not, this is a chemical, like an environmental issue. It's not nobody's trying to, so we do things that people are intentionally trying to block. So if they were blocking water so that no water was coming into your ditch, that's something the drainage board will look into and be like, why are they putting essentially a dam on here? I mean, but what you're talking about is, like I said, it's EPA, it's IDEM, it's health department who have all been involved.
Agree, and what we'd like is, we're trying to do a united broad front, because we want to come to some type of conclusion with all this. And so we're bringing IDEM and the EPA, but I would say the drain board would be very critical to moving this forward.
Oh.
And your voice is very critical, because you see what the issues are. And I would love to brief you on the issues I faced five or 6 years ago. It's a whole other scenario with the city.
Yeah, I mean, another group you could contact is DNR. I didn't think about like the ducks and stuff in there.
Well,
We have.
yeah, the county's been very helpful. IDEM has been very helpful. DNR is kind of a joke. And EPA in Chicago is very slow. They'll eventually get to it, but it's just, it takes a while. But we would like, we think that the drain board should spearhead this. I mean, that's people's drinking water out there. I mean, that is drinking water, that is being polluted.
Well, once again, the health department deals with drinking water, not the drainage board.
I'll do it. I'll review some of my notes and then I'll.
Over the decades, it seems like we've dealt with the water quantity side
Right.
of the ditches and the drains, not the water quality side. Leave that either to the health department or IDEM. I don't know what the conditions of this permit is, if we could say, well, you violated, because usually, it seems like when the plant out there in New Carlisle went in, they said it would be stormwater quality water going into the ditch, but I don't know, even if we have the authority if they violate that stormwater quality thing, if we have the authority to cut off their permit to discharge the ditch or not. That's for you, Marcel, to.
Yeah, once again, the water quality issues are health department issues. I mean, they're the ones that have got the ordinances and the statutes to deal with that. And they work with IDEM and the EPA. I mean, they did the South Bend Range cleanup. I mean, once again, those are the groups that cooperate on the environmental impact issues, which is what you guys are talking about.
But when they're raising and lowering the water level, then to your point, that should bring in the drain board. They're raising the water level in the ditches, and this is all lowland. So that would bring you guys in.
Are they flooding your property?
No.
I mean, they can, yes, water levels go up and down, but if there's nothing that's having an adverse,
Man-made, like they put out the whole stream.
I understand, but I'm saying, like, if they're not raising the water enough where it's having an adverse impact, I mean, once again, we deal with things, if they're messing with the water issue so that the banks are caving in, that's a drainage board issue. If they're messing with the water issue so that, they're flooding your farmland, that's a drainage board issue.
Well, your banks are getting raising the water, so yeah, there you go.
Okay.
What we could do, I suppose, is look at their permit to see because usually, don't we usually say you can discharge up to 10 CFS into the ditch? That's kind of a parameters of how much they can send, how fast?
Yeah, I mean, so with the health department side, we looked at this, and one of the concerns was if the ethanol plant gets shut down, how much water is going into that ditch from the ethanol plant? And do you guys have enough water to irrigate if there is no ethanol plant?
Well, okay, that ditch has been there long before the ethanol plant.
No.
So,
No.
or I'm talking about the river, the Dixon Place ditch.
yeah, not the ditch on
Right, the Dixon Place ditch, that's been there long before the ethanol plant. So that water's gonna keep on flowing. My understanding is they're putting down 3 million gallons a day. But that ditch isn't gonna go anywhere. They stop pumping into the ditch, and you're still got plenty of water.
Okay.
Because that's all lowland muck. I don't, and I don't know, you say that, and Randy knows what I'm talking about, but this is all low ground. And this is the last place you wanna be putting more water. I would, if you'd like to come out, I would love to take you out, I can educate you on what's going on, and I think you'll see, you'll see this very, very clearly.
Okay.
This whole thing's kind of complicated, because remember years ago when the ethanol plant shut down, that water table came back up and all those people basements flooded, so, it's a very complicated issue, and, as far as this, they have the right to discharge water into that ditch, as much as you guys have the right to pull it out and irrigate your crops with, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, it's a
Yeah.
tricky
Well,
balancing
they have
act,
a
but-
right to pump clear water.
Clear water.
is my
Right, no, I
definition.
totally get that.
I mean, I would say,
Totally understand that.
for all intents and purposes, for what they're putting down in those ditches is violating the law, correct?
Yeah, but it's an environmental issue, not
I
a,
agree, but it's violating the law. So let's just go right there.
Take time.
Hi, I'm Brandon Zick from Cirrus Farms. We're at 806 Howard Street, South Bend, and we're a neighbor to all of this that's going on. I think from our standpoint, it's a little disappointing that there was no communication to the neighboring landowners. I would think at the drainage board level, there should be some request we could make either to the city or to the ethanol plant, or both, that they should be required to notify people who are on these county ditches, if there's an issue. So yes, it is an environmental issue, but people should at least be given a heads up to know, and we don't irrigate out of the ditch, but if we were to, that would be a real problem if we were growing a fresh market crop that now is contaminated with God knows what all this stuff is. But I think the issue here seems to be, you guys are trying to figure out, do you have any purview over this? And the city and the ethanol plant are very clear that, frankly, they don't give a shit. Because the minute it goes into that ditch, it's out of the city and it's away from the ethanol plant, and now it's the county and every landowner's problem. So our view is, we own, 7,000 acres in St. Joe County or something like that, and 50,000 acres in Indiana itself. We don't want the EPA roaming around on our farms, period. And if you're saying that's the best option, is to have the EPA come in to try to stop this in St. Joe County, that seems like a pretty embarrassing statement. And you don't know what else they're gonna find all over the place as they start rolling down the ditch and rolling down the river. So I would think there should be some requirement, or at least a request from the drainage board for reporting from the ethanol plant in terms of volume and quality of what they're putting into these ditches. And certainly when there are failures from the ethanol plant or the city, whoever controls those ponds, that there's notification and some amount of accountability. Because it's very clear, whether it's Chantel not being able to get a hold of Chuck at the ethanol plant, which he's been there a long time now, at least 2 owners, so he knows who the neighbors are. And so that's a willful choice not to respond. And the fact that the city's not responding is par for the course. So I think if this committee doesn't want to do something about it, the people that will are the kind that all of us don't want here all the time. And to the extent that this area becomes some kind of brownfield or Superfund site because of what they dump in there, that's not good for anybody. Whether it's South Bend City, county, and as it extends down the Kankakee. So all we're asking for from Cirrus, what Cirrus is asking for is some level of communication and some type of action, because it's clear that at least two parties don't care. If you guys don't care, which I find that hard to believe, I'm sure you do, we have to be creative and find a way to put some pressure on them, because otherwise it's just a bunch of landowners that, if the response is we just have to sue these guys, well, we'll certainly do it. But that seems like you're asking a lot of other landowners who are going to be impacted who might not have the means to go out and do something like that. I don't think that's the united front that we're trying to put together, so.
I think what council said, to me, it come back like the health department. They're the ones putting the beds,
But we could at least ask, in terms of what volume are they putting in? Are they at least within their easement or within their permits? We don't know. What reporting, do they have a valve monitor that shows how many gallons they're actually putting in there? I'm guessing no. And, if we're saying, well, if it's the quality issue, then let's get on the health department's ass to do something. Because these are pollutants that now you have an issue. If I were Snyder Farms, I'd be petitioning the drainage board to be cleaning that ditch and removing that polluted dirt and taking it off-site. And that's a cost to everyone in the county that pays drainage assessments. So this is a real deal.
Right. Once again, it's not that the county doesn't care. It's this is quantity. Quality is the health department, which I know has already been working on this. So if you want us to see how much water is going in there, John can try to figure out how much
Shouldn't you be
water is getting
required?
discharged. But the quality issue is what the real problem is. You guys don't, well, from what I'm
Today,
hearing
that's
is
the real problem
the amount
today.
of water that's in the
But if you
dish-
don't know how much water is actually going in, you don't know if they're within their permits or not. How can you say that quantity is the only issue you care about when you don't know the quantity? You're just saying we're passing the buck.
I asked if they had any issues with flooding. I asked if they had any issues with erosion, and they said no. So the quantity that's going in,
No, but that's today, but you're just saying, if there's no complaint, there's no issue, not are they in accordance with whatever their easement or their permit is. Is it an easement or is it a permit?
I don't know. That's once again, she's the landowner who gave the easement. So the drainage board didn't have anything to do with creating the ditch. There was the city and the landowner. So based on what she said, it sounds like they're in violation of their easement because they're not discharging potable water. But once again, that's a water quality issue.
All right.
Can the drainage board send an official letter to the entities involved saying, we would like more transparency and can you provide us? Is that within our scope?
I was just gonna ask that.
If you want to know how much water is being discharged, absolutely. If you want to know how they're discharging it, absolutely. But I mean, it sounds like you already found out that they're.
Yeah, I've tried getting.
Do we know, do they actually have a approval or permit from the board to discharge or not?
I know, Sean Kelson, and they're discharging about 3 million gallons of water a day into the cooling pond. I'm not quite sure how much goes into the cooling pond, how much comes out the other end, but then it goes into unfortunately, it's a private ditch. It has never been petitioned to the drainage board, and it was dug by, I think, either the city or the original ethanol plant owner.
The
That's that ditch
easement,
that runs out along the railroad tracks.
the easement was granted to the civil city of Southland.
Right. So
By
it's
Snyder
actually a city ditch going into, it
It's a
goes
private
underneath
ditch.
bypass and then it
It's
dumps
legal.
into the Dixon West Place. So they're actually discharging into their own ditch, which then discharges into one of our ditches.
I just want to correct you on that. The city doesn't own it. They didn't buy that property from Snyder Farms. They have an easement and a right-of-way. They don't own that ditch. They use it.
But today, the city would have been required then to get a permit from the drainage board to discharge into the Dixon. Somebody would have had to.
Yeah, and that's all paperwork from way back when, and I haven't dug into that yet, but
Seems like that's,
that was before me, and, Tom might be here then, I don't know, but, yeah, I haven't gotten that far into it yet, just because, you know, I don't know how.
We'll
what
pull the
we-
permit and we can see if they're violating their permit.
Who has the permit?
We do.
So I'll start digging even deeper to see if I can't find that information. But yeah, that was 2 or 3 owners ago, so, but I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn. Oh, not yet.
I brought this today as a bill due. I mean, just turn it in for next month.
What's that?
This is a bill from H&D Drainage. I just brought it this
Oh, yeah.
morning. You want me
Kevin
to,
told me, yeah.
you want me to just wait till next, just turn it in and we take care of it next
Yeah,
month?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay,
Yeah. Kevin said he gave it to you, so yeah.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.